Hi there, folks. This is Body Electrician Live, and thanks for joining us tonight. We have kind of a full house tonight. We have some folks that we haven't had before, including Miss Delanne Walts. Hi, Delanne. Say hi. Can you hear me, Delanne? Delanne can't hear me. And we have Bob C. We'll get back to Delanne and figure out why she can't hear us.
This episode of Body Electrician Live is brought to you by Boone's Farms Box O Wine.
All right, we have a problem with Delanne right now. Delanne, can you hear us?
Delanne can hear us. We can't hear Delanne, which means somebody probably pressed Delanne's mute button.
No, I don't think so. Delanne, why can't we hear you? You're speaking and we can't hear you. All right.
Use the sign language.
Hold on. We'll look into a few things and see what's going on. Okay, I should hear you, Delanne. I don't know why we're not hearing you. You still can't hear you, right, Delanne?
Check to see if your phone is muted, Delanne.
Sorry, folks. Just a couple of technical difficulties here. We'll get to it in a minute. Delanne,
can you hear me now?
I hear you.
Ta-da!
I told you you were muted.
Oh, we were missing you, Delanne. It was like so lonely up here.
I'm so sorry. I was watching anxiously.
Gee, thanks. I can leave.
No, don't you dare.
Oh, you don't want to be stuck alone with them, but you want me to stay. Thanks.
That's right.
Anyway, so I should introduce Cheryl Whitehouse as well. Say hi, Cheryl.
Hi. From California.
She's in California. And I'm Nancy Piscatello, and I'm on Long Island. Not the Bronx, but Long Island. The Bronx would be cooler, right, Bob? I know.
Long Island.
Yeah. Not everybody can pretend to be a redneck in New York.
This is true. Anyway, so we had a very interesting week, I should say, on Body Electrician Community Kitchen. It's quite a stir about a site called Erica Awakening, and I posted a link to her article. She was a vegan and is now not a vegan, and apparently that caused quite a stir on her website. And when I posted it on our page, there were quite a few comments, and it's interesting because our group is usually very quiet and very calm, but I did notice a little stirring of the pot there, so I thought it might be an interesting conversation, not to mention that we all have our own experiences with that and our own stories to tell. I don't know who wants to start with that, but I know Delanne has quite a story to tell about that. So I don't know if you're up for telling that right now, Delanne, but maybe I'll find you.
Well, I was 21 years vegetarian and didn't put the pieces together until I met Will, but over the course of that 21 years, in the first part I really felt good, but slowly as time went on, I just started to notice that, my skin was looking agey, my hair started to turn gray earlier than it should. I had mouth, teeth, gum problems that wouldn't go in, ended up losing my teeth. And then I developed back issues that eventually put me in a wheelchair for 6 months. After the back surgery, I still was, a year later, just periodically on the couch with spasms in the same area. Until I happened to meet Will, and he started pointing to amino acids and minerals and eating correctly and why we need to eat animal. And it's funny, the day I finally got it and decided, okay, I'll do it, all my kids sat around in a circle with their eyes real wide. Mom's going to eat meat. But I have to say, My health, I mean, that's been 6, 7 years now, and I can say my health is still improving. All these things that I listed are still slowly getting better over time. So, I mean, that's it in a nutshell. I stopped eating meat because it went against my grain that an animal should have to die for me to live. And I think that's why a lot of people do it.
Yes.
But then in the conversations with Will, I had to deal with thoughts like, well, okay, on a frequency level, when you yank a carrot out of the ground to eat it, there's actually more trauma recorded in that carrot than in an animal who is, raised lovingly and killed in a sacred way. I still to this day cannot justify eating grocery store meat that comes from the Midwest that's, just raised in a horrible, inhumane manner. But and then when he said to me, you can't take a breath without causing 1,000,000 deaths because there are microscopic animals in the air. It's unavoidable. I really had to come to terms with the fact that life is death. And we're so alienated from that. I think that a lot of people are choosing to make themselves unhealthy by not eating a proper diet for humans based on these moral issues. And it's probably not necessary if we'd get, back to natural living and a natural lifestyle and connected with the earth and experience these things. We're so removed.
Wow. Well put, Delanne. Now, Bob, were you ever a vegan or a vegetarian?
I'm gonna go out here and say, yeah, I was. I ate vegetables and fruits my entire life. Did I not eat meat during that period? No, I did not.
You mean as a child? You're saying you grew up not eating meat?
No, I grew up eating good food. That was one of the side effects of being first generation American of an Italian upbringing. Even in the Bronx, we had chickens, and even though you could mow the backyard with a comb and scissors, there was a garden, okay, and there were neighbors, and I would say conservatively 80 to 85% of the food we ate was not store-bought.
As opposed to today.
Yeah, and the food that was bought in a store was like the market in, Westchester Square or something like that. There was a fish market, there was a produce market, there was a whatever market. Before we went on air, we were talking about how my grandmother and all the neighborhood women would go on the sides of the Bronx River Parkway or the Bruckner Expressway and pick dandelions. Okay, that was the way I grew up.
Yeah. Well, there's many issues to this. I guess that's what Delanne is saying too. I mean, there is the ethical reason that people go into it, but when I came to you guys, Delanne, you and Will, I had originally come from the Weston A. Price Foundation, that kind of dietary background, and you guys follow a lot of that, but there is a definite step away from them on grains, nuts, seeds, tubers. However, it's interesting how there's so many levels to this conversation. Were you going to say something, Bob?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I hate it when I agree with Delanne, but
You do not.
She was spot on with a lot of what she said, and she knows. So I'm going to take this perspective of it. As she can attest, my connection to the animal kingdom is orders of magnitude more strong than it is to the human animal. Okay, I am an animal person, and when I say that, I just don't mean I like them. I mean that a large portion of my life is given to rescuing and sheltering and protecting animals. That also being said, I am of the spiritual culture where the sacrifice of one life for another is a requirement for existence on this planet, and any life that is taken, whether it be animal or vegetable, is revered. Okay? So this faction of veganism that I call the moralistic vegan that Delanne described, okay, these are the hostile militant vegans. Okay, I know not one of these people that has had their life endangered or been shot or been injured or put themselves in harm's way to rescue an animal. But they're quick to start Google chats and YouTube videos and hangouts and provoke some air of moral superiority because they have decided that their view of the sanctity of an animal's life is morally superior to mine. And the fact remains, as Del just said, okay, the exchange of life energy is necessary for us to survive in this reality, no matter what you feel this reality is. And one of these militant vegans once said to me that when I said to them that you're making a moral delineation of the value of life, because you have decided that it's okay not to kill an animal, but it is okay to kill a plant. And his reply to me was, that's because I can't have a sentient relationship with a plant. I'm like, oh, really? There are hundreds of indigenous cultures on this planet that have sentient relationships with plants. If you go to Central America and ask an ayahuasca priest, how did they ever figure out how to combine those two plants and make ayahuasca? They will tell you with a straight face, the plant told me.
Wow.
Okay, there are cultures on this planet that think that trees are the second most sentient beings on the planet. These are cultures in the Ukraine, in northern Russia, the Druids, the Celts. There are 7 teaching plants in the world. So for you to arbitrarily, now I'm not saying that I'm against corporate farming. The meat that I eat comes from natural farms. I belong to a farm co-op. All that stuff, I do what I can. Okay, and I value the life of critters, all critters, especially those critters that sacrifice themselves for me. And just as everything has a purpose, it is my understanding that those creatures know that that is their place. Okay, just like all creatures inherently know what their place is, and to rob them of that is to dishonor and disrespect them. Okay, so my problem with this veganism thing isn't whether or not you can gain healthy nutrition, isn't whether or not it's healthy. It's the other side of it, whereby just because they've drawn some other different line in the sand, okay, they're so compelled to justify their position that they put forth the most unhealthy, damaging propaganda that there could possibly be, that's making people be sick.
Well,
End of rant.
Well, you know, a lot of the things Delanne just talked about, how her body deteriorated. Same thing with this woman, Erica, but there weren't too many people that were hearing what she was saying. They only heard the fact that she said she's no longer a vegan. So it's interesting. How about yourself, Cheryl? Did you have any experience with vegetarianism, veganism?
I tried for many years to not eat meat, but it was the bacon that kept bringing me back.
It's the bacon.
I've experimented with different diets. I did the Hallelujah diet for a while. I did a form of raw vegan. That was really difficult. Yeah, kind of mostly like a vegetarian, semi-vegetarian. I tried not to eat meat, but I ate it anyhow.
The vegan thing, though, especially the raw, I believe there's a lot of problems with that. Yes, Delanne? As far as what that does to your insides, for us to break down that cellulose and all of that?
What, raw meat?
No, the raw vegetables.
Vegetables. Yeah, there are some vegetables, broccoli in particular. I don't know the name of the acid, but it's actually better eaten cooked because there's an acid that if you eat it too much raw broccoli, that it can actually affect your health. Will's a little bit more informed on that than I am, but there are some vegetables that are really better not eaten raw.
The funny part about it is raw meat, which disgusts most people, is more healthy for you than raw vegetables, and cooked meat is less healthy for you than cooked vegetables are. One of the things that we've lost culturally is how to prepare vegetables properly to remove the toxins from them, because almost every plant out there has some form of a toxin as a natural defense. And you know, people don't realize how poisonous things like beans can be. Kidney beans are incredibly toxic. And they have to be soaked properly and prepared properly. And there were different pickling processes for different grains and for different meats and for rices. And these were all abandoned with mass-produced food.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, I'd be interested to know statistics on, you know, people who are these adamant vegetarians, just what their life and their background has been. Because I know for myself, I grew up downtown. We didn't have gardens. You know, I wasn't even aware of where food came from. In fact, I remember very distinctly taking a drive on a Sunday with the family, and my 4 brothers, you know, always clowning around, picking on me. I was admiring the cows in the pastures, and they brought up that that's where my steak came from that we had the night before. I was mortified. You know, I just totally out of touch with where food comes from, how anything gets on your plate. It's just in the refrigerator. Mom makes it. And I can really understand how someone coming from that environment, because that was me, you go out and you see the cute little cows and the calves in the pasture, and you don't want to see them hurt. There's a whole like blank as far as being connected with nature, and you know the things that Bob was just saying about how foods are gathered and treated and being responsible for your own diet. That's purely in my adult life after realizing that there was a big missing for me. I mean, I'd never even slept outside when I was graduating high school.
Yeah.
People lose sight of the fact that how you eat is probably more important nowadays than what you eat. I don't care if you're a vegetarian, a vegan, a carpet lint sucker, a breatharian, a carnivore, an herbivore. It matters not to me. Okay? One of the things I will say that vegetarians and vegans have over most people is all the peripheral health things. They say, oh, when I became vegan, I became healthier. But they also did things like quit smoking. They started exercising regularly. They removed a lot of the toxins from their environment as a side effect. They don't realize that this contributed to their health probably more than their diet did. But again, this moralistic fast food veganism that we have nowadays is they're going and buying a quote-unquote vegan product in a box that's just as toxic and poisonous as the non-vegan products that are in a box. Because the bottom line is, if it comes in a box, it's not food.
Well, go ahead.
Not to mention all the ungodly stuff they put together in a blender to drink it down. We could go
I
in
used to do that a lot. Yeah, it used to give me a tummy ache mixing the fruit and vegetables. It felt good going down. It felt like liquid sunshine, but then it got to my tummy. I was like, oh.
Well,
and Will tell you that veganism is a really good fast. It's a good cleanse. You know, for a while you do feel good. Yeah. It's energizing, and it's like a detox plan. It's just over time, the body gets depleted. It starts to eat itself.
And again, as long as you address those issues, it doesn't matter how you address them, whether you address them with the plant kingdom or the animal kingdom. You still need to be aware of them, and you still need to address them.
Yeah, we do have people that are clients that are maintaining good health that don't eat meat, but they're willing to be vegetarian rather than vegan, and they'll do butter, cream, milk, eggs, cheeses, things like that have the animal aminos that are necessary for our health.
Yeah, I think that makes a huge difference.
Mm.
I had done both. I had gone back and forth, but I tell you, I don't recommend either one of them before having children. That I would say.
Yeah.
My firstborn had, poor Sid, I mean, she came in, when her teeth came in out of her gums, there were huge white spots already formed on them. And people were blaming breastfeeding, and I said, does that make sense that nature would rot a baby's teeth out of their mouth when they're supposed to be breastfeeding at, a year and a half? I mean, does that make any sense? So, I mean, her teeth were just rotten right from the beginning, and I thought, what else would contribute to that other than, the fact that when her teeth were forming, which I think is in the very beginning, I don't know if anybody knows exactly when they're formed, maybe 3 months or something like that.
Well, I don't know. I had a child that had 2 teeth at 3 months and another one that didn't get any till 10 months. So I think there's a variance there.
Yeah. Well, but no rotten teeth though, right? No. Nothing.
No, they didn't come in rotten anyway.
Yeah.
And another thing to consider too that Delanne just kind of touched on is we're not indigenous anymore as people. She's talking about like mixing things together and powders and stuff like that. And one of the things that I scream about is balance. So the first thing is this: before the airplane, okay, we had a rather local diet. Okay, everybody likes to talk about the miraculous healing powers of honey. Okay, well, honey is only healing to you if you consume the honey of the area that you live in. If you import your honey from South America, guess what? There's a nutritional value, but there's really no health benefits because you're talking about a food that was produced in an environment that you don't live in. And that's unfortunately the problem. The environment that we live in is severely toxic, and the food we consume is rarely local. Okay, so we're not even getting nature's remedy for her detoxification of the mess that we live in. So if you look at it from the standpoint of before the airplane, if you lived on Long Island, say you were one of those cursed people out in the lifestyles at the rich and famous end of Long Island, okay?
Thank you, Bob.
Not a problem. Okay, if you tried to live on the diet of the Inuit Indians, you would probably be sick and puking for like a long time. If you tried to live on a diet of somebody on an island off the coast of South America, it would be the same thing. It's not your indigenous environment, it's not your indigenous diet. Okay, but now with globalization, we have these crazy fads because let's face it, we're lazy and we're looking for some sort of external savior, and so even in the natural health world, we fall victim to the magic pill of the month. So the magic pill of the month is coconut oil. Okay, so you know what? I'm going to consume 5 billion gallons of coconut oil and coconut oil concentrate pills and coconut oil powders and coconut oil butters. Okay, number one, how many coconut trees are growing on the freaking east end of Long Island? And number two, even if they were, could you eat the equivalent of 1 billion coconuts a day? Now, I'm not saying that there aren't good nutritional properties in a coconut, okay? There are, because there are cultures that eat coconuts, but they eat coconuts. They don't consume metric tons of coconut synthesized in a laboratory.
Yes.
And so again, these people wonder why, oh, you know, I spent $300 and I took this stuff for 90 days. And yeah, you know what? In the first week or 2 weeks, I feel great. I feel wonderful. I feel this. And then all of a sudden it doesn't work again anymore. Why? Because all you're doing is now you're creating a new level of toxicity to something that's relatively foreign to you. And people don't realize this. The same pattern that the allopathic, you know, big pharma treadmill they got put on, they apply it to the homeopathic or the natural, medicine / diet world, and they get equally disastrous results, which brings me back to my statement: how you eat is probably more important than what you eat.
Interesting points. And I believe it was the last show we had, Will was on, and he was talking about monocropping and what's happened to the coconut since it's been massively monocropped, and how that changes the plant, everything, the fruit. So everybody agrees with that, I guess, right?
Nature not only abhors a vacuum, but nature, if you look through every culture that there is, they have a symbol equivalent to the yin, the yang, the male, the female, the positive, and the negative. Okay? All motion is caused by tension and chaos, and nature seeks homeostasis, which is a balance between those two forces. So wherever something grows that is food for you, it grows someplace where there's food for it. Okay? When you monocrop, you're actually removing nature's ability to balance anything. So you throw everything out of balance. It's like I plant a crop of something, and of course that crop is going to be food for me, but of course that crop is going to be food for some other critters too. Okay? And those critters are going to go to where there's food. And in a natural world, nature also sends another critter in there that's food for that critter. Okay? And then when that cycle happens, they become food for the plant again, and we go on and on and on. But we get so ego-soaked as human beings that we come up with these wonderful concepts like junk DNA. Okay? Yeah, Mother Nature got it wrong, and like 94% of our DNA is junk. Yeah, okay, I'll buy that. Because we have so successfully intervened in nature to make everything so much better. Why wouldn't I buy into that line of crap? So whenever you monocrop something, you're doing the crop harm, because you're not giving the crop its natural protections and natural nutrients that nature would have provided for it had you just left it alone to begin with.
Yeah.
Right. And speaking of nature and its ability to support our health, as a species, or as Americans anyway, we've mostly lost our touch with nature. And it's well known that if you garden, and if you're out there in the soil with your bare feet, if you let the nature in the world around you, especially where you're growing your food, if you let it know you and what you need, nature will tune and will actually fortify foods for you. And it's not just one individual in a garden. I think it's also a community thing, like what Bob was saying, eating food that's indigenous to where you live. There's levels to that energy, but you can really have nature focus in on you and feed you for your own good if you get yourself out there and be in your garden and feel the soil. Let the soil feel you. Share with it.
Are we talking frequency?
There are indigenous cultures on this planet who, as part of cropping, put the seeds of what they're planting in their mouths, in their cheeks, under their gums, and carry them with them before they're put in the ground. And it has been, a lot of research about this was done in Russia, actually, because they've always had the population versus plantable land issues because of the climate there. They've actually proven that in doing that, what Delanne said is true, that the circle of life, frequency, whatever, the crops will tailor themselves to their environment. They will tailor themselves to your needs.
Well, isn't that what goes on with breastfeeding? I think I read that a long time ago, that as a baby nurses, there's some sort of exchange that goes on there, and your body actually produces more of this or that according to what the baby needs. Have you heard of that, Delanne?
I have to some extent. I'm not surprised because that's how nature works.
Yeah,
Nature, yeah.
So the next time some militant vegan tells you you can't have a sentient relationship with a plant, tell them that's only because they're not intelligent enough to have a sentient relationship with a plant.
We're going to get some hate mail. I feel it. I feel it. I know.
As long as they're carved in bullets, I will feel perfect.
Exactly. That's crazy. Well, you know what? Cheryl and I do a lot of bopping around on Body Electrician Community Kitchen. And there's a lot of interesting topics that come up on there. Cheryl, I don't know if you wanted to talk about it, but I can bring up something while you're thinking about that. But one of the topics that came up was AOT and oil pulling. Somebody had problems with their gums. I believe both Cheryl, you, and Delanne broke into song about that. So maybe we want to talk about that a bit.
I think Delanne gave a good answer on the site, but it was brought up by a woman who, was having trouble with gums and thought she had an infection and didn't want to take antibiotics. And there was a range of advice given.
Right. We've worked with several people, more than several, a number of people that have had gum infections and problems with their mouth. And a couple in particular that I can think of were actually advised by their dentist to have their teeth removed and go through the whole process of getting implants, totally replacing their teeth. And we worked with them mostly with the AOT, the advanced oxygen therapy, to get rid of the infections, but it's very effective, and teeth will restore themselves. They loose teeth that are loose from infection will firm up again. The bone that supports the teeth will grow again. Cavities in the teeth will restore themselves as long as you're eating a biologically correct diet and doing, what you can to give your body what it needs to do that, and not eat too much in the way of sugars and processed foods, etc., etc. But the ancient practice of oil pulling goes back to the Ayurvedics, and that's probably the oldest medical health modality study, whatever you want to call it, on the planet. They're 6,000 years or more old, and they did a practice of mostly with black sesame oil. There's a lot of people doing it today with coconut oil. I'm not real aligned with that, but with the black sesame oil, you put a tablespoon in your mouth on rising in the morning and just swish for 15 minutes. Of course, if you're going to try it newly, you want to maybe do a teaspoon and only do it 5 minutes. It takes some getting used to. Keep your head tipped forward so it doesn't trickle down your throat, things like that. But that not only will pull the toxins and kill the pathogens in the mouth, it'll actually pull through the system. It's a very healthful practice.
Yeah, I think Oslam was telling us about that. Remember that, Delanne?
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, she brought that up. Well, different cultures have experience with this. She claimed it really brought her teeth back, and somebody else who was commenting was Gary, our buddy Gary from Scotland, and he had quite an experience with it, it seems. I'll have to have him on here, huh?
Yeah,
Cheryl?
I haven't heard his story on that one.
Yeah.
Well, people aren't aware of two things. The first one is the nerves in your teeth, in your tooth pegs. They control your circadian rhythm, and they're very heavily connected to your brain in close proximity. And the other thing is that your face and your head have 8 times more blood vessels in them than any other part of your body.
Your teeth are plugged into your meridians as well.
Exactly. So you're talking about the sewage system and the information system, 2 major hubs there are in your mouth and your teeth. And like Delanne said, the Vedics, oil pulling, they use different flavored oils because the spices have different effects and things like that. For me, of course, being Italian, I grew up on olive oil. So I do with olive oil, and one of the major side effects of that or benefits of it is it's a noticeable difference in your skin and your hair.
Oh.
Yeah.
Do you do that every morning, Bob? You swish with like about a tablespoon or less?
I don't even use a tablespoon. There's just a bottle of it, like next to my toothbrush. Just a bottle of extra virgin olive oil.
And as soon as you get up, you swig a little bit and swish it around. And what about 15 minutes? Same thing as Delanne?
Yeah, like I'll take a mouthful of it and I'll swish it while I'm in the shower or something like that, and then spit it out.
Yeah.
You know, I particularly, I don't do the different spices and flavors and stuff for particular healing modalities. I just do that in general. You know, I rarely, if ever, have issues with any sort of infection or anything like that in my mouth, so I don't do the AOT toothbrushing, but I know people that do because it is good for infection. But the oil too itself is got antiseptic properties to it, and again, you get into the situation where digestion starts with smell. Okay, the metabolic changes to your body that induce digestion and food processing, they start with smell, and then with taste, and then with saliva. So you don't even really need to consume a food. I mean, we all have felt like that craving in the pit of our stomach when we smell our favorite food. Okay, you don't even have to consume a food to cause metabolic changes in your body, and you don't have to swallow it to get benefits from it. And again, this is stuff that we were taught. Well, once you have a cavity, it never grows back in, or once you do this. Well, if one of the biggest nerves in my entire body ends in my tooth, and my tooth is alive, and I can feel pain from a cavity, how can you tell me that's a dead thing? So what do? They pull the tooth and kill the nerve. Okay? Yeah. But as long as the nerve is there, and as long as the blood supply is there, and as long as you are getting, which most of us are not, as long as you are getting the proper nutrition, okay, that will, like any other part of your body, protect itself in some capacity and heal itself in some capacity. It may be uncomfortable, but what do we do when we get a toothache? Okay, we want the pain to stop. Right. And so what is 99% of the dental treatment out there? Causing the pain to stop.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, we all hope we have happy teeth. I haven't had such good luck with that, but that's all right. Nor my kids, I guess. So what are you gonna do? You're blessed with some things, not blessed with other things. We all have that in our lives, right?
One cavity in 50 years, and I was 17.
Really? Oh, you're killing me over here.
No, and what's funny too is again, I am of the firm opinion. It's not because of my doing. It's just because of how I was raised. I was not raised on bad food. It just didn't exist in my world, in my life. There was no McDonald's. There was no Burger King. I can vividly recount things of being in my older teens, like shortly before I moved out of my parents' house. When my mother, I distinctly remember when my mother bought the first box of powdered mashed potatoes. I remember that box being flung across the kitchen and exploding against the wall.
Wow.
That made a point.
Pretty much.
Pretty much. Wow.
And that's another thing too that I will say. Even my house today, I have a dining room, a kitchen, a kitchenette, and a living room. And Delanne's been here, and outdoors dining areas that all are interconnected and open to one big space. Okay, And it's not like a conscious thing, but in my world, food was a social function.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yep.
The worst thing that has ever happened to nutrition is the drive-through.
Yes.
Okay? Because food is a social event. You don't socialize without food, and there is no food without socialization.
Not TV dinners.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I was about 14 or 13 before the radio was allowed to be played when we sat down and ate. And I'm like, I'm not going to say that he cared, because he probably didn't. But you sat down at the dinner table. My father was served first because he was the breadwinner, and then we were served, and you know, I grew up poor, and there was a lot of times where the extended family thing, everybody brought something to the table, literally, and then it was a how was your day? Okay, and like I said, I'm sure he didn't pay attention to 99% of the things that we had to say, but it still was that you are going to engage in conversation because it's meal time and that's a social time.
Yeah.
That's often the only time the family actually gets together.
That's true.
Yep, you're absolutely right. I mean, there were baseball games, there were school events, there were, we'll call them community functions. He was never present for any of those, but rarely, if ever, did he miss a family meal.
That's great.
Just another one of the many ways that we have lost touch with our nature. Our connection, the connection to Earth includes the connection to life, and of course that includes our connection to family, to holism.
And the most important connection, and the one that we've lost the most, without all those other frames of reference, we can't listen to our own bodies. We can't listen to our bodies tell us what we need. We can't separate chemically induced cravings from internally induced cravings, which is, think about it, how many times have we ate something and we wanted it so badly, but it was like absolutely like Cheryl said before, it tasted good going down until it hit our stomach.
Yeah.
What was it satisfying? Who put that craving there? Why did that craving exist? Okay, why did you indulge that craving? And then, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Okay, how many times do we go back for more?
Like gluttons for punishment.
Yeah.
That's trying to compensate for something missing emotionally.
Yeah, or we're getting into the pathogenic overload within the gut, right? That's causing all kinds of cravings. And don't you guys always talk about that on alternate perspective? Sorry, guys.
Well,
We do.
we talk about it a lot because it's true, and we cite example after example after example.
Yeah.
Approximately 70% of you is a tenant. It is not a cell of your body. It is an external organism that has lived in you. Okay? And we cite all kinds of parasites in nature, different mushrooms, different fungi, different bacteria who invade a host and actually take over it to the point where it can have the host perform a behavior that is detrimental to the host, yet beneficial to the parasite. This is hundreds and hundreds. In fact, about 4 or 5 months ago, National Geographic did some of the most unreal photography there was about parasites and different species of parasites, spores, molds, mushrooms, funguses, wasps, and the photos that they took were just incredible. This exists in nature, the ability of one species to hijack the function of another species. Okay, now considering that 70% of your body is foreign to you, how can you deny the possibility that bodily functions, including mental processes, are not hijacked? Because it has been scientifically proven that the simple ringworm, okay, actually causes you to crave sugar that your body doesn't need because it does.
Yeah. Well, we've all experienced that. I'm not sure that it's ringworm in everybody, but I'm sure there's something going on just like that.
Well, just getting a common cold. You get a cold. I know with me, when I used to get a cold, the things you're not supposed to eat, like, you know, sweets and dairy and junk, were the things I craved. That's what I wanted. Didn't want the tea. Didn't want to stick to the, you know, raw fruits, clear liquids. It was junk.
Yeah.
You know, and then you also have to add to that the food corporations. Okay, they put chemicals in food that cause you to crave more food,
Right.
because that's what's profitable to them. You know, so on top of the natural component of it, you have a chemical component of it too. So they put things in your quote-unquote food, or as Patrick would say, doof, which is food spelled backwards. They put stuff in your food to make you crave more of it. Okay, and then let's not forget television. Okay, marketing. You know, all of that stuff is just literally to hijack your thoughts, whether they hijack them mentally, emotionally, or chemically.
Well, Bob, going back to the original topic we started, the vegan movement, I beg to say that I think that may have been manipulated by certain organizations, certain think tanks. I think there's a move towards that. I don't know if anybody wants to speak on that, but I mean, back
Well,
around the circle, but
I won't talk specifically of the involved parties as far as a movement goes.
yeah, no, you don't have to, but you know what I'm saying. I think
yeah.
it's manipulated.
But I will say this. In general, in life, we call it the different color lipstick on the same pig. Divide and conquer. People gloss over this. Okay, we don't look at each other as people anymore. I call them Post-it note holders. Okay, we like to label everything, and we like to label everyone, and we like to compartmentalize everything, and then we like to divide. Okay, so of course there has to be, you know, like I said, I don't care what you eat. I care how you eat. Okay, so however you choose to get that nutrition, that's your own personal decision, and I may not agree with it. However, okay, once we start with the labels and the Post-it notes and the division, then here's where the problems occur, because people get so ego invested in defending their position that they do harm to themselves, and they separate themselves, and they alienate themselves.
yeah.
Okay, so part of that programming is the battle of the egos and the divide and conquer. And as long as we're fighting amongst ourselves, we're not fighting amongst the other people. So here's a perfect example. The vegans claim that, like, you know, on moralistic grounds, they don't like corporate ranching. Okay, the corporate meat industry. Well, I despise the corporate meat industry too. Okay, and I don't participate in it. Okay, however, instead of joining forces to battle the problem, which is the corporations, instead they create this false battle between, like, oh, once everybody's vegan, then the corporate, you know, meat industry will go away.
Like
It's not going to happen. Okay,
Yep.
You know, it's unrealistic, but yet this is where they choose to draw this line and participate in this battle, and I refuse to participate in this battle. Okay, my problem with who treats an animal poorly is who treats an animal poorly. Okay, I don't care who you work for. I don't care who's signing your paycheck. I don't care why you're doing it. If I see you do it, you as a human being are paying the price. Okay? When you and I hold ourselves and each other to a personal level of accountability, that's when things change from the inside out. But if you are going to enter into these false paradigms that they spoon feed you in these bullshit battles over vegans versus carnivores and this versus that, and you just think that the corporations are going to melt away, you are insane. Okay? And that's not just the vegan topic we're talking about. Democrats, Republicans, blacks versus whites, Christians versus Muslims. You can see this pig in every corner, in every facet of your life, everywhere. They have perfected it in 10,000 years, and they play you like a fiddle.
Divide and conquer.
Yeah.
If people only knew how much wisdom there was in all that old dopey shit our grandparents used to say to us that we used to laugh at. Like, you say to somebody, divide and conquer, now it goes in one ear and out the other. Okay? All of those neat little colloquial sayings that we just, yeah, okay, Grandma, whatever you say. Okay? If you actually stop and think about how much truth is buried in all of them now, it would be profound to you.
Good points, Bob.
Excellent points, Bob.
Don't suck up to me.
I'm not sucking.
All right. You know, but we're getting close to ending, guys. I think this was a great conversation we had here, and I thank you both for joining us, and Cheryl and I both thank you. Before we end, though, I think this is a great time to kind of give little places where everybody comes from, and like bodyelectrician.com, we want to give a little credit to them, and Delanne and Dr. Will Spencer.
Yeah, and we should let people know that I don't know who's been on the website or who's had whatever problems, and we've been promising for a long time that we were working on getting new servers. We've done it. The websites are moved. They're not 100% what we want them to be yet, but the security is in place, the ordering is going smooth, and they're just going to get better and better. Now we have an opportunity to put the products up, all of the products, because we don't have them up. Everything that we have to offer and the information, et cetera, et cetera. So if you've been there and you were disappointed, just keep coming back. It's going to get better.
Excellent. Anything coming up, Delanne, for you or Will? You going anywhere? Well, I know where you're going very soon. A couple of weeks. You'll be on Long Island.
We'll be up on Long Island, yeah. Now we went to the, now I just drew a blank. We were at a conference last week in Philadelphia. What is it? Something Your Mind. Does anybody remember?
Free Your Mind.
Free Your Mind. Yeah, it was an awesome conference. A lot of really great open-minded people right in the heart of the city. We were impressed.
Very nice.
But as far as that goes, no, it's you're the next trip we're making, and that's Long Island, and that's what, the first week of May?
Yes, the 8th. Your first gig is the 8th, the 9th, and then the 11th, and they're in all different locations of Wild by Nature. So
right.
we'll post all that up, make sure everybody knows where you guys are going to be, and I'll be tagging along as well. And Bob, why don't you, real quick, just tell us about you and Will still doing alternate perspective? Go ahead.
I don't have a web presence because I really don't care, and I don't think anybody really cares anything I have to say anyway. It's just my lifetime of experience.
I love you, Bob.
But yeah, about 4 years ago now, Will had me be a guest on his show when I had first become a client of his, and I guess I never left, apparently, or kept getting invited back or something. So Wednesdays at 1 Central Time. That would be 12 your time.
Well, it's 2
And
o'clock by me, so.
or yeah, I'm sorry, 2 o'clock your time.
2 o'clock, yeah.
I always get it wrong. Like I said, like anybody cares. But yeah, Will's show is an alternate perspective, starring the guests that never left, which would be me and Patrick Jordan.
We're all clients of Will's, right? And see how that works out? Thank you so much, Will.
Well, that's one of the things that people don't realize what the difference is when I first met him, it's not like I'm not skeptical of things. I vetted him pretty harshly, and one of the parts of that vetting was will not sell you stuff, okay, unless you go through the scans and the protocols and whatever. He will not let you, quote unquote, self-medicate, self-diagnose, or anything like that. And when you think about it in terms of the marketing models that are out there, even in natural medicine and natural nutrition, that speaks a lot. That speaks a whole bit. I mean, people put their stuff on their website, and you can buy whatever you want. You can do whatever you want to yourself, and they don't seem to have an issue with that. And from the very first time I ever spoke with him, that was not the case, and that was different and profound for me.
Yeah. Well, he cares, you mean?
I'm not going to speak on his behalf, because really maybe he doesn't care. I don't know, but he hasn't shown me otherwise in 4 years. So
There you go.
and the other thing too is, since I'll say this, thank you for having me on, and I think the Body Electrician Community Kitchen is a great thing. Again, because like I said, I care not whether or not you're vegan or a carnivore, suck the lint off your carpet. It makes no difference to me. What matters to me is that you get your head out of YouTube, you get your head out of the programming, you get your head out of television, and you actually start to have real experiences with what you're doing to your body and what food you're putting in your body and the effects that certain things have on your body. And it's an experiential thing. Okay, yeah, you can do some fancy book learning, and there's research that you can do, but the fact remains is that each of us is unique and each of us is individual, and what works for one will not work for another. And I think that the kitchen thing addresses that. I think it addresses it in a very open, come as you are type of thing, no prejudices given as to what your personal choices are, only that the choices that you make, you are aware whether or not you are making them and they are personal or they are being made for you, and then doing it with a certain amount of personal responsibility.
Yes. Well, I think, Will definitely has suggestions as far as dietary suggestions, and I've definitely put that right out there for people to read. But I have also prefaced it by saying that he will work with anybody who, they may still be vegans, vegetarians. It's just that he has an opinion about the subject that may be a bit different. So that's it.
Well,
am I right on that, Delanne?
Well, I just would like to add that Will's opinions are not random. He
Give
started
that
out.
to him. Give us Will's opinions, Delanne.
I'm not going to give you his opinions. I'm just going to say that they're formed from experimentation, firstly on himself, and then on, the farm animals he raised. He's worked with all of life, not just people, and he's worked with people extensively. And he says what he says, and he believes what he believes because he's seen it work time and time again, and he's seen it work in less effectively when what he suggests is followed, more minimally. And so, it's you can't say it's proven. There's no real statistics, but in our experience, and I've seen it time and again, I haven't been at this near as long as Will has. So there's reasons why he says what he says. It's not just a moralistic or a random
No,
choice.
absolutely not. No. In fact, we really didn't get into the whole why he does suggest eating animal products, and of course, well, a little bit we touched on it. We were more talking about the ethical side of it, but you know, I definitely have seen a difference in my body too after going back. Again, that's not a judgment to somebody who doesn't want to consume meat, but there, you know, it is what it is.
Right. And in closing, I would like to first of all thank you and Cheryl for this fabulous idea of even putting this up. It's really serving people on many levels, clients and people who are curious about us, and it certainly is giving a camaraderie to the people who are out there doing scans as our hubs. Excuse me. But we've talked all about diet, and I just want to put a plug in there because in my world, in my belief system, the most determining factor of your health, your happiness, your function, and to me, even the reason we're here on this planet, has to do with the mental, emotional, energetic, even spiritual existence. And if we could achieve balance on that level, which would include all the things that Bob talked about, people accepting one another and life actually working on the planet, respect and honor, love and joy and all of it, is taking responsibility for the energetic being that we are, and take some of the focus away from the things that we do, take the time to sit and be and know thyself from that aspect, because that's where real healing and balance comes from.
Well, I have noticed that on a lot of levels, that you start out with you guys, and you're such a wonderful team, the two of you, that you start out with the physical, because that's really a place you have to kind of get in there with the nuts and bolts and
You got to
fix.
remove the distraction so that the mental, emotional can adjust.
Exactly.
What is
You know, it doesn't take long. I mean, it took me, well, a year and a half, I would say, year and a half to 2 years, and you suddenly realize you're not just dealing with the physical anymore, that it goes
Right.
into exactly what you just said. So,
what
I'm
is
sorry, Bob, go ahead.
what is the name of the oath that every doctor takes?
Not healing,
Hippocratic oath.
hurting
Right.
somebody.
And
The Hippocratic oath.
the Hippocratic oath is named after a gentleman named Hippocrates, who was an
Yes.
ancient Greek, and one of his lesser known yet should be his most famous quote is, "Let food be thy medicine, and let thy medicine be thy food."
Yes, yes, I have heard that. Yep, good one. Very true. Bob, I think you just gave the closing remark there. I like that. I like that a lot. Cheryl, but before we go, is there anything you wanted to add? You've been quiet there for a little while, just checking on you. You go.
I'm all right. I'm thinking about my dinner now.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you again, guys, for joining us. And this is Body Electrician Live signing off, and we'll see you again real soon.
Good night.
Good night.